I asked who was this Prof B-Lynch, they said, well, for a start, he dresses very well. And the second thing is he has invented something which will be of no personal benefit to you. I think for Chris, a dinner jacket is just smart casual at best. And he's maintained those standards all the way through his life. But in terms of the hospital, Chris, of course, is as old as the hospital, or service here, I should say, is as old as the hospital. He is one of the rocks on which the hospital has been built. He'll leave when he leaves, and his departure has been reminiscent of Frank Sinatra's, going on with many a farewell concert, and I hope there'll be some more. And I think the foundation that he has laid for the hospital and for the department, the best tribute that we can pay to him is making sure that both continue to thrive and survive. So Chris, I want to invite you up to come up and cut the cake and pass on the delighted and grateful thanks of all the administrators in the hospital, all the management of the hospital for your contribution over more than 25 years.
First of all, I wouldn't know where to start. And having had all these very glamorous description of my work with friends, etc., makes it difficult to respond. Apart from just saying thank you very much for coming and for all the nice things that have been said. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to organize things for people to come, last minute changes, etc. So I'm deeply indebted to both Naomi Whitelaw and our Secretary Nairi, who I'm sure we'll see this evening. But I'm also grateful for all my friends and colleagues I work with, theatre staff, outpatient staff, the ones that have rubbed down the wrong way and all that. So there's no such thing as perfection in the NHS. You tolerate. My father used to say, the best way to manage yourself in a public environment is to know how to tiptoe through the tulips. So I think if you get that down, I can now cut the cake.
Get Jane to do it.
Yes, Jane, you're better at it.
Excalibur.
Excalibur. Well, thank you, everybody. I'm very grateful. Thank you.
Well, I first met Mr. Lynch at the interview for the consultant post on the 10th of January 1984. And he came over as a very flamboyant character, and that hasn't changed one bit. So we were thrown in at the deep end. There was no book to tell us how to do it, and we just mucked in. We had to open the hospital in a very short time from appointment to opening, and everything had to be done. Nothing had been set up. We had a building site to start with, and then a hospital which opened for maternity services at the beginning of May '84. We had to appoint all our staff, order all our equipment, get it in place, speak to all the local people, lay and professional, to sort out what they wanted from the maternity services. And we had to get together as three young consultants who didn't know each other before. It all went extremely well. It was frenetic in the extreme. I'm sure we made lots of mistakes, but we also made a lot of good decisions, and things went very well. We all worked together. We're all, as you can see, very different people, but we got things going, and it was a wonderful, hard time.
Well, I was chairman of Milton Keynes Hospital from about 2002 until 2008, when I retired. Preceded Chris's retirement by just a couple of years. Chris was obviously one of our very senior consultants, a very well respected consultant obstetrician and gynecologist, but he was also a very pro Milton Keynes person, and Chris always had Milton Keynes Hospital and his patients at the root of everything he did. Chris was excellent, and the hospital will miss him on his retirement.
Chris is brilliant. I mean, he has been done so many things. Like every great person, you have problems. My main problem with Chris was that nobody told me that he was courting my secretary, who's now his wife. Well, you know, you can sound out about your colleagues, but you don't want them to go through your secretary back to the colleague you've been sounding off about. But Chris, no, Chris has done so much.
Chris always had a very outgoing personality, and I suppose the biggest thing, his patients always valued very much Chris's continuing, ongoing interest in them. He would treat them, and he would then phone them up, make sure they're okay, and if there were any issues, Chris always dealt with them. A splendid man.
Well, I've known Chris Lynch since he was a medical student. But then, of course, subsequently he worked for me, I think, as a senior house officer, but I can't even remember that bit, but certainly as a senior registrar, and that's when I got to know him best. And of course, here was a man who I knew was a giant, and I knew that I could never emulate him completely. He dressed impeccably even then, and I tried to take a few hints from him, because unbeknown to me, I was going to get another job, which was to be gynecologist to the Queen. And of course, it really should have been someone like Chris Lynch, because even at that age, he knew exactly how to dress and be really smart about it. I'm joking, of course, but I've just been very lucky in my career, and I happened to get this, be invited to do this job of looking after the royal family, and I've done it for 20 years. But you know, it's not really a major contribution to the world of obstetrics and gynecology. And Chris Lynch has made an absolutely outstanding, internationally important contribution, not just from the B-Lynch stitch, but from focusing the world onto the problem of postpartum hemorrhage and how important and how preventable and treatable it really is. And so I think that's been a fantastic contribution.
He used to do a gynae clinic on a Tuesday afternoon. And if his secretary was away, sometimes I would have her phone. And we used to get phone calls during the lunchtime on a Tuesday from people saying, I've just seen Professor Lynch in Boots in Newport Pagnell, and he's told me I can come along to his clinic this afternoon. And I used to say, I'm sorry, but you really can't do that because we need a referral letter from your GP. And they used to say, but he's told me I can come. Yes, but he might have told you, because he's a sort of chap that wants to help everybody. And we had to sort of gently remind him all the time that he had to sort of pull back and not get all the people in Newport Pagnell that he happened to see on a Tuesday morning along to his clinic in the afternoon. I think he soon learnt that he had to do it the right way. But anyway, that's one of the first things that I really remember about him.
Whenever you mention Milton Keynes Hospital, the first question people ask you is, do you know Chris Lynch? He must have done something good to become so widely known by so many individuals.
There have been times when I've had one of my family that with an issue to do with a gynae procedure, and he was very supportive and wanted to help, and told me where I had to tell them to go and the things they needed to do. And since that time, he's come back to me to say, was that okay? Did that person, all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, always wanting to, help people and do the best for people. Sometimes, as I say, overstepping the mark by telling people to come along, but it's generally him. Always wants to help people.
Well, it's a felicitation, and it started by accident. Both of us had similar interests, unbeknownst to the other. I was interested in postpartum hemorrhage. He was interested in postpartum hemorrhage. We had a mutual friend, David Bloomer, the CEO of Sapiens Publishing. Now, David had been my publisher for 25-some years, and so I called him on a first-name basis. He called me on a first-name basis, and he said, Lewis, you ought to meet Chris Lynch because he's got the same idea. So he and our mutual friend, my former resident, Mahantesh Kuroshi, we all met in Bombay, India at a cafe and had a coffee and a tea or something, and that was it. We came up with the idea, and then we went back to David Bloomer, and he took the idea, and it went from there. It's extraordinarily effective. As he said in a video this afternoon, it's cheap, it's easy, and it works. What more do you need? It's a legacy that can never be erased. Well, this is not the brace operation, it's the Lynch operation. And 15 million people have looked it up on Google. You can't take that away, it'll never disappear. It's always going to have his name. So what more can I say? I mean, the list will grow every day. He has assisted me in everything I've ever asked him for assistance. He goes out of his way to be a good human being. What more can I say? It's not that he has these medals on his chest. I mean, my brother was in the Army. He has far more medals on the other side of his jacket. But that isn't the point. He's a good human being. If he took off his jacket, he still would be a good human being. These medals don't make him the good human being.
Well, I would say to anyone retiring that the most important thing is that you're now your own boss. What you decide to do with your time, whether you want to continue working in some way or go do something completely different, it's your decision. You're making the decisions. No one else is making them for you. And that's where the enjoyment comes in.
I officially retired 8 years ago, and I've never been busier. And I'm sure that Chris's talents will be used, particularly his postpartum hemorrhage work, which again, there's not a hospital in Britain that doesn't have on the wall of the operating theatre how to use the Chris Lynch suture. That was such a breakthrough.
People like him don't retire, they just change gear a bit and do different aspects, and I'm sure he'll carry on with academic work and with promoting safe care for women in labour and so on, but particularly in relation to hemorrhage. That'll go on forever.
I'm just going to start because today has been a successful day. Mm-hmm. It's been a day that's always going to come. And now that it's here, how are you feeling, Professor Lynch?
Oh, I feel ecstatic, especially because of the wonderful support I've had from my colleagues, especially those that are not in the UK, from abroad. I've had colleagues from Australia, New Zealand, the Middle East, and America, of course. The distinguished and outstanding Professor Louis Keith from Chicago, who's the head of the department there, has come all the way especially to support my retirement celebration, which is very touching.
It's been a long career. Probably one of the most illustrious careers I've ever heard of in the medical profession, and filled with all sorts of stories and, how can I put it, epiphanies.
Yes.
And it all began with one epiphany you had one night. Tell me a bit about that. I know I've heard the story before, but for those who haven't.
Well, it's a situation where you will say is divine intervention. I was in bed 2 o'clock in the morning, not on call, not on duty, enjoying my sleep, when the emergency phone rang, disturbed my wife's sleep, who sort of started giving me a bit of hell. Why is this phone ringing again? It's always ringing at night. So when I took the phone call, it was an emergency, a patient who just had a normal delivery, who was hemorrhaging. She'd lost, by calculation, about 20 pints of blood. They needed somebody to help with saving her life, as well as saving her uterus. So I dashed in my car in my pajamas. When I got to the theatre, everybody think I was a madman or a stalker or something like that. When I got to theatre, I saw this patient lying there. The anesthetist is in panic, said this patient is going to rest, he's going to die. So went in straight away, opened her up, and applied this brace suture, which I invented. And that was the day, in fact, the invention occurred. The idea came to my mind, but I never had the opportunity of applying it in practice. But God made it happen, and now it saves over 4,000 lives in the world.
That's some legacy for you to leave after
Yes.
such a long career. And how does it make you feel? I mean, do you ever think anything like that would ever happen to you?
Well, I've always thinking about how to save lives, how to improve the life of the less fortunate, and things like medical emergencies feature prominently in deaths. And most of the people who are not able to go private or whatever are the ones who get caught out in this scenario. So I'm pleased. I worked for the health service for many years. Even though now that I've retired, I'll do work anyway. And I'm still an honorary consultant at the hospital. So if they do have more hemorrhages, they will call me. So I'm committed to improving the health of patients.
And you've always been committed to putting Milton Keynes on the map as a founding member here. I mean, what's your recollection of the fields before the hospital was built and how far it's come in your time here?
Well, it's come a long way. We just have to keep pressing to make it better. What I regret at the moment is we have not yet been able to establish university link. We have 3 universities in the area, the Open University, Buckingham, and we have the Cranfield. I have established link with the Cranfield, the researchers you heard today, but we need to have medical education link with training university like Buckingham to be able to raise the status of the hospital, the awareness of the importance of education, and to build a frontier for products of local education. Boys and girls who educated Milton Keynes, they'll be proud to come back and say, look, I graduated from Milton Keynes. What would be much better than that in terms of achievement? That's what I'm still working on now.
And no doubt you'll carry on working on that.
I am jolly well going to make sure it happens.
But now, will you have hopefully some more time, maybe to spend with the family, maybe to improve the golf swing? What are you planning to do?
I don't play golf, but I travel a bit because I'm just in education. I work for the World Health Organization in terms of their program to reduce maternal death. But I do 2 days a week as opposed to 5 days a week now. Although my family tells me I still do 7 days a week. But it's a matter of you're as young as you feel, and if the opportunity is there to improve the lot of the less fortunate, so be it. That's what my philosophy is. You know, we're not all privileged, but those of us who are should share the good news with others.
And any young doctor aspiring to be someone like yourself, a surgeon, a professor, what advice would you give them, and what qualities
my advice
do they need?
would be is go for it. Be brave, be strong, and don't give up. Above all, know how to tiptoe through the tulips so you don't ruffle any feathers on the way. Because human reaction is unpredictable. So it doesn't mean you should be subservient all the time, but you should make yourself somebody with personal and self-respect. Go for it, I mean. Achieve what your potential is. Don't punch above your weight, but punch effectively within your weight. That is how to win battles or confrontation.
Words of wisdom from a wise man. Thank you so much. And one final question.
Yes.
Are you happy with this portrait? Is it a good likeness? Is it flattering?
Well, this portrait was done in Poland, the University of Poland, where they invited me as their guest lecturer for an important international meeting. I was giving this lecture as the keynote speaker, and this chap was sitting in front of me. I thought he was taking notes as to what I was saying. In fact, he was drawing my portrait. So when the meeting finished at the end of the week on the Friday, I was presented with this canvas-covered thing as one of the presents they gave me. And when I opened it, it was my portrait of how I looked giving the lecture. So it's just absolutely amazing.
Fantastic.
You know, and it's done by the Polish most revered artist. And he said to me, he said, the way you can tell it's a genuine artwork, as you walk past it, the eyes follow you. And I've tried it and tested that, and it's true.
It works.
That's right. Amazing.
Professor Lynch, congratulations
Not
on
at
your
all.
illustrious
It's
career.
such a pleasure, and thank you for coming to do it, because this is important for assisting our young trainees to feel that there's hope at the end of the line. You know, not to give up. That's
Well, you're a
important.
great example and a great role model for all young people
Yes.
to be successful in their lives.
I hope I can help further.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Congratulations, Chris. We had a wonderful time working together. You made a tremendous contribution over the years in Milton Keynes, and I wish you all the very best in your retirement.
Well, Chris, it's been great knowing you. You'll obviously hear all the things I've just said about you, but I'm sure we'll see more of you because you'll be coming in to do the MAS courses, I think. I doubt if you'll ever be able to stay away, but I wish you and Julie and the children all the best for the future.
Yeah, I would say to Chris that he's got my permission to do whatever he's desired in his life, and I wish him good luck.
So all the best for Chris, and he certainly won't be quiet in his retirement.
Chris, I'm delighted to be here today to celebrate your retirement. You've worked really hard over the years and you deserve a long and lazy retirement. Best wishes to you and to the family.
When Naomi said that you were closing your career, I thought to myself, she doesn't know what retirement is about. Retirement is defined as not getting the check that you used to get, but it certainly doesn't mean that you're not going to work anymore. We've got plenty for you to do. There's the next edition of the book, there's the Postpartum Hemorrhage Foundation, there's your private practice, there's travel, there's lectures, there's all sorts of things. You won't have to be on the call schedule of the Milton Keynes Hospital. You won't have to attend their silly meetings. You won't have to do anything you don't want to do because you're emeritus at this hospital. But that doesn't mean you're going to stop working. So here's to you, Guy. And as I said,